This is Calm AF, a podcast for humans who are hard on themselves. A podcast for the overthinkers, people pleasers, perfectionists, and overachievers. I'm Kristen Finch, and I'm going to teach you how to quiet that incessant negative chatter in your head. Because you know what a person with a calm mind can do? Anything they want. Grab your coffee, gorgeous soul, because today's the day you get Calm AF. Hello, gorgeous soul. Welcome back to Calm AF. So we are on part 3 of this series, what I would tell my younger self. If I could go back in time and tell my younger self something that would save her a lot of time and energy and pain and struggle, these are the things that I would tell her. So if you haven't gone back to listen to parts 1 and 2, make sure you do that at some point. But for a quick recap, in part 1, what I shared that I would tell my younger self is to be aware that all the time you spend trying to make external changes to yourself or your life, like trying to change your body, trying to change your habits, trying to change your relationships, without pausing and going back and addressing the internal issues. The more you do that, it's just a huge, gigantic waste of time. Like, I know we want to hurry up and make changes to the life that we can see, the parts of life we can see, because then we think we're going to feel better. But if you don't fix the foundational cracks, you will keep ending up back at the same place. So those external changes that you make will be temporary unless you start with those internal foundational changes. That was part 1. And part 2, I think this is an episode that you need to go back and listen to on repeat. I've heard a lot of clients or a lot of people have shared with me that they've listened to it several times already. A lot of people who have shared they've listened to it with their kids, which I am obsessed with that. Because in part 2, I'm talking about how to feel your feelings. This is what I would tell my younger self about feelings. And I believe that if we were taught as children how to feel our feelings instead of numbing them out or avoiding them or fixing them, or if we also learned that we are not responsible for other people's feelings, I think the world would be just a radically different place. Your life would be radically different. First of all, think about that. If you weren't afraid of your feelings or other people's feelings, if you weren't afraid of feeling guilty, if you weren't afraid of disappointing someone, if you weren't afraid of, what other people think of you, what would be different in your life today? Like so many things. But also the bigger picture, the world, like what if everybody knew this, if everyone was walking around as these emotionally mature beings, like I'm responsible for me, you're responsible for you, let's be kind to each other. Obviously the world would be incredibly different than it is today. So that's parts 1 and part 2. Today's episode is a little bit different because this isn't exactly something that like I learned over time. This is actually something my younger self just inherently knew. And this is something that my younger self just was. But over time, I got this doubt. I started doubting that this was an okay way to be. Like I thought there was something wrong with me. So let me just get into it and explain. So here's what I would say to my younger self. Younger self, there is nothing wrong with you for being a person who looks for the bright side of things, even hard things, that looks for the positive in the negative. There is nothing wrong with you for being a person who wants to find what's good in the bad, who wants to find the lessons in the pain, who wants to find things that are cause for celebration, even in the failures. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you for being this person. Here's what's going to happen, though. People are going to tell you that it is wrong. People are going to tell you that you're naive when you give people second chances. People are going to tell you that, yeah, hope for the best, blah, blah, blah. But be real, be reasonable, be responsible. And really what you need to be doing is preparing for the worst, because that's the thing that's going to keep you safe. Sure, have your hope, but prepare for the worst, because that is safer than hope. People are going to tell you throughout your life that you can't just throw pink paint on top of a problem. You can't just walk around in your rose-colored glasses, because if you do that, you're going to get hurt. You're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be disappointed constantly. These are the moments in your life that are these little messages are going to be given to you over and over and over, that this thing about you, this thing that you're really good at and you really love to find the good in the bad, these little moments are going to wear away at you. They're going to make you believe that this makes something wrong with you. And there will be a day, an actual moment in your life, that you're going to be sitting in a room with a big group of people, friends and family, and the topic of discussion is going to be something very negative, something really horrible. And one of the women in that group is going to turn her body to face you. There's going to be a record screech moment where the attention is going to be on you. And this woman is going to turn to you and say, "Well, silver lining girl, what do you have to say about this?" And in that moment, because of all of the moments that came before it, of people telling you that you're naive and you're irresponsible and you don't live in the real world, in that moment, you're going to feel the shame flood through your body. Because you know how she means it, right? You know what the message underneath it is. It's not "Aren't you great for finding the silver lining?" It's, listen, all of us here are responsible adults. We live in the real world. We get that life is just a series of dumpster fires. But you don't. You don't get that. You won't look at that. You will not. You need to find the silver lining. But, younger self, the joke is actually on them. Because here's what's happening. What they are assuming is that you are doing what they are doing, that you are hyper-focusing on one side and ignoring the other, that you are hyper-focusing on what is good without having the awareness that there are things that are bad. And listen, that is how humans are wired. We are wired for survival. People are designed to be hyper-focused on what could go wrong, what's bad, what is dangerous, because that is how humans have survived all these years, right? Back in the day, you had to be hyper-focused on the danger around you because, you could be eaten. You could be, something horrible could happen to you. You could starve. So that is how nervous systems of humans are wired. If you zoom out, though, and you look at things for what they really are nowadays, what's true about the world is that very rarely are we in this very imminent danger situation. You will see, if you zoom out, that very rarely is anything all or nothing. Very rarely is everything 100% good or 100% bad. So think about a bell curve, okay? So the bell curve, and on the ends are the extremes. So if it's a bell curve of bad and good, on one side of the bell curve is catastrophe, and the other side of the bell curve is perfection, right? These are the two extremes. Now, if you look a bell curve, the most likely outcome, the biggest part of the bell curve, happens in the middle, right? In between catastrophe and perfection. There are a million options between perfection and catastrophe. There are a million options between 100% good and 100% bad. Think about black and white. What is between black and white? A million shades of gray. But again, back to this wiring for survival, humans are programmed to hyper-focus on the catastrophe. That is where we are spending most of our time looking at that tiny little part of the bell curve. So knowing that, wouldn't it actually make sense to actively seek something on the other side. If you are wired to stay here, wouldn't it make sense for you to actively push yourself to find something different, something's more likely that's in that middle of the bell curve? Actively find the good things that are happening outside of that extreme catastrophe, right? Nudging your way towards that balance between the two extremes. Wouldn't that make more sense? Yes, it would. Which is why, younger self, you actively focusing on finding the good isn't delusional at all. If we are thinking about who's more delusional here, who is it? The person who is trying to find what's more true, what's more realistic, or the person who is hyper-focused on what is not likely going to happen? That's more delusional. So get this idea that looking for good, being a positive person, searching for the silver lining makes you delusional. Now, obviously, if you have your head in the sand, if you're just like, nope, it's only good, and you refuse to see the bad, that is different. That is delusional. Now you're doing the same thing, just on the other side. But if what you are doing, which is what you are doing, is saying, here's this really hard thing, here's this really, this hard struggle, maybe there's a way to find something good here. Is that a problem? No. Right? If you are knowing, like by trusting people, if you are moving yourself towards that center of the bell curve, by trusting people, you don't actually believe that no one will ever hurt you. You just don't assume that everyone will. That's the difference between looking for the silver lining and being delusional, right? Believing things will work out doesn't mean you're oblivious to the option that things might not work out. You aren't naive because you look for the silver lining. You are resilient as fuck because you look for the silver lining. Because what's going to happen is you're going to spend more time outside of the catastrophe. And listen, if the catastrophe does happen, that rare occasion where it is the worst case option, you're not going to have a choice to go into the catastrophe, right? You'll just have to go in it. You're just going to have to go in if it's happening. But if it's not happening now, if instead you're just hyper-focusing on that it could happen, you do not have to sit there and wait. I promise, sitting there waiting, hyper-focusing on what could go wrong is not actually protecting you. Okay? Spending more time outside of the catastrophe will help you get through things easier because it will be building your resilience. Okay? You're not going to avoid hard things. Hard things are hard, but resilience, spending more time outside of the catastrophe, spending more time in belief that things could work out, that there are positive things here, that will make things easier because it will make you more resilient. You will bounce back quicker. You will be able to let go of things instead of holding on to them forever, right? That party that you're called not in a nice way, silver lining girl, that isn't going to be something that takes you down for weeks. You aren't going to be replaying that in your head over and over and over and thinking about it every time you see this woman for the rest of your life because you're resilient, because you are silver lining girl, because you know that is just one moment. That is just one moment, that not everything is all good or all bad. Not all people are all good or all bad. That's not what the world is. We are somewhere in the middle. And you looking for the silver lining is what will allow you to bounce and to recover and to not hyper-focus and replay something again and again and again. So that's it. That's what I would tell my younger self. To be proud, to know that this skill that you are going to be kind of shamed for, or people are going to tell you don't live in the real world, or you aren't realistic, or you're delusional. This thing is actually something to be proud of, your ability to find the good and the bad. In fact, this skill is going to allow you to help a lot of people by teaching them how to also find the silver lining, how to become more resilient so they can bounce, so they can do all of the things without getting stuck in the catastrophe. All right. Thank you so much for being here with me. Calm AF Life is closed temporarily while we make some upgrades. So you can check out the show notes for links to some different things if you want to schedule a call with me, if you are looking for, maybe how I can help you rewire so you can find more silver linings. You could be a silver lining girl too. All right, gorgeous soul. I love you so much. I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. And before you go, one more thing. So as you know, I am slightly obsessed with helping as many humans tap into their calm AFness as possible. So if this podcast has helped you, would you please leave a review, make sure you're subscribed, and share it with your friends. Also, make sure you head on over to KristenFinch.com to see how you can work with me. You can sign up for my emails and get any other goodies I have available. Until next week, I love you so much. I am so grateful that you're here. I'll see you next time.